Good morning. I'm Pat Croce, and welcome to the American Cancer Society's HEALED Community Gathering. HEALED, health and energy through active living every day. And I like to start each HEALED gathering with just a moment of stillness. And I ring this little Tibetan bell. Just place your attention lovingly, gently on the sound. The door has opened. We've walked across the foyer and we're all together in this space of loving presence. Let me thank our presenting sponsor, 6ABC. Thank you. Thank you. Our leadership partners, those 28 individuals who've not only committed monies over the next 5 years, but also have shared their Rolodex to help other companies get involved with our HEALED movement. And each and every one of you who have registered on ACSHEALED.com and gave a donation anywhere from $5 to $5,000, it doesn't matter. And you've received your bracelet with that one green bead that signifies the oneness that we all are. We're all in this together. And I thank you. I thank you all. This is our 12th week of our HEALED Community Gathering, and they're always so informative, entertaining, and encouraging everyone who listens to not suffer. It's a choice. The old Buddha said 2,500 years ago, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So we're taking away the option so that you can rest in peace, love, and happiness with us for the next 60 minutes. And we bring on great guests, warriors who have survived cancer, who thrive after cancer, and open the doors for all cancer patients, caregivers, and loved ones to a whole new world of peace and happiness. And our first guest does exactly that. His name is Dr. David Chernow. And David is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Select Medical Corporation. At the age of 25, David's body was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And it was such an experience that David decided that healthcare was in his future. And so his company has 60,000 employees. And when we talk about leadership, this man's picture is in the dictionary under leadership. And I want to welcome David. Come on, David.
Thank you, Pat. I very much look forward to chatting with you and sharing the story.
I will cheat and say that David and I have spoken a couple times before this event, and you will be so impressed and engaged in what he says, because not only are we going to talk about caregiving and healthcare and health and energy through active living every day, but we're talking also about leadership, about experience, about evidence-based on what makes people successful, whatever that word means to you. David, I'd like to start by going back in time and share with our gathering your diagnosis, how it was diagnosed, what age were you, the whole works.
Well, thanks, Pat. And again, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the American Cancer Society and all the things you're doing, which are inspiring to me. First off, I got to make a correction. I'm not a doctor. I do stay at a Holiday Inn sometimes, but I actually work with doctors, as you know, and have been for almost 40 years, but I haven't got to that status. But
did I call you a doctor?
Hopefully someday. You did, which I appreciate. I love the fact that you just called me a doctor. I'm going to tell my wife that I'm now a doctor. But anyway, grew up in Los Angeles real quick. Grew up like you, loved athletics, sports. I was a tennis player in college. After I graduated law school, I had what I thought was a groin pull, and went to a doctor to check it out, and lo and behold, they diagnosed it as testicular cancer. And I, unfortunately, during the Christmas holiday, I remember going in and them doing the surgery, and like life will have it, nothing that was supposed to happen happened. We all have to embrace adversity sometime or many times in our lives. And it turned out that not only did I got treated in Los Angeles at UCLA Medical Center, but I ended up having surgery, and then there was several complications where I was in the hospital for 2 months at the ripe age of 24, 25 years old.
What kind of complications?
Well, number one, they did a surgery that it wasn't just a normal surgery. That the testicular had gone into my lymph nodes, so they ended up doing what they call a retroperitoneal lymphadenectomy, or an RPL surgery. Ironically, this was 40 years ago. Ironically, what they do is they go inside your abdomen, not to be too graphic, and they remove your lymph nodes. But ironically, they didn't do all the pre-diagnostic surgical standard type things where they did imaging, because if they had, they would have known they shouldn't have gone in. So that sort of prompted me to become a healthcare guy. But they ended up doing the surgery in my removing the lymph nodes, and then I had what they call chylous ascites. For the doctors who all know what that is, it's your lymphatic fluids permeate the abdominal walls, and so you look like you've literally become pregnant. And
wow.
So expand so they had to aspirate, do all these different things, not to be too graphic. But then they had to feed you. Way back when, you couldn't eat. Ironically, when you would eat, your lymphatic fluids would increase, and so you'd expand if you had nowhere to go. And so they had to treat you with hyperalimentation, which is they'd intravenously feed you. So I was on hyperal for 5 weeks. So the irony is I do think there's silver linings to all this. I'd be watching commercials on television of food and salivating in the hospital when I was there, and I couldn't wait to have a McDonald's hamburger, but I couldn't have it. So I was very much teased through my 2 months in the hospital. And so they had to go back in and do the surgery to remove to close up. In essence, it was a leaking of the lymphatic fluids through my lymph nodes. And then, of course, as life would have it, they came in and they said, you know what? You now need chemotherapy. So then I went through 3 bouts of chemotherapy at Cedars-Sinai, did a great job of treating me. And ironically, that's where everything changed, right? Now, having no hair is no big deal. But back then, going through chemotherapy, I developed what I call the mirror theory. So you're going to ask me, Pat, what the heck is a mirror theory?
Well, the only thing I know about mirrors is that in sports conditioning, that many athletes do it wrong. They only exercise the muscles they see in the mirror, and they forget the opposing muscles, causing more injury.
Right. They can't see it. Well,
so what is your mirror theory?
My mirror theory was, you look at yourself in the mirror, and this was a time when you were going through chemotherapy, it was really difficult because they didn't have any antiemetics or anti-nausea drugs at the time. So you get up really sick, but also your hair would fall out, right? And so I shaved my head and I had a good head of hair, Pat, very good head of hair. And the mirror theory was, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, what's really important to you? And I will tell you, it was a silver lining of a dark cloud that I realized back then at a very tender age of 25. And ironically, there was a very wealthy billionaire industrialist who was down the hall at the hospital where I was. And I realized just then and there that no money in the world was ever going to make him happy or healthy. It's all about your inner happiness and your optimism and your attitude, the things you talk about. So the mirror theory was, what's really important to you? And it gave you perspective, and it gave you an appreciation for what you have, which is, my own personal was, I had a fantastic family, and I had friends that I found out were my true friends. And that was the silver lining of the dark cloud.
You talk about adversity, and you mentioned it prior to just giving us your diagnosis in that treatment program. Was that the most adversity that you have experienced in your life?
I actually, up until that point, I'd lost a sister. So that was one of the great sad moments in my life. But I will tell you, and I think you'll hopefully many of your listeners and you will embrace this as well. There's nothing more painful than seeing your loved ones in pain. And while we go through the treatments and surgeries and chemotherapy and everything, watching your parents who you love or your friends who you love or your siblings watch you and the anguish on their face is really caused great sadness for me, and actually was a strengthener for me, because I realized I could handle it. It was harder for me to handle the pain I saw in my family. And the American Cancer Society and all of us who go through this, we recognize the importance of our family and our friends and our support systems that really help us get through this painful episode and get us through the journey. So that was, at the time I also lost my father 2 years later, that I to this day realize that, the pain and the suffering he suffered watching his young son go through all this terrible stuff. That's why healed is so important, right? It's really so important, because we're here to thrive, not just survive anymore.
Amen. Amen. So can you share with us this experience of cancer, surgery, chemo, the death of family members? When was it that you decided healthcare would be your future?
So I remember it like it was yesterday. I was pretty much weakened to a great degree. And remember, I mentioned, not that I was any superior athlete, but I was athletic, and I played collegiate sports. And
that's pretty good.
It was good. I wanted to be a sports agent, Pat. That was my goal in life.
You're too nice.
Well, thank you. But I always thought it was the thing I wanted to do. But when I got home, and one other quick thing that maybe some of your listeners and doctors and oncologists will remember, this was before anti-nausea drugs. So I'd have to go into a hospital and get the chemotherapy, and I asked them to give me Thorazine and Reglan, because I wanted to be knocked out, because going into a hospital back then was terrible. When I say terrible, going through chemotherapy was terrible, because you get so sick, and the anticipation of getting sick was terrible. So this is before anti-nausea drugs. So I say, knock me out. I don't even want to be conscious. And well, little did I know, it knocked me out for good. And it took me days to open my eyes. You were conscious, but you couldn't open your eyes. It was terrible. So I'd go home. I was weakened, and I would go on walks every single day for about 3 months, every day by myself, because you're pretty alone. And you'd say, what's important to you? And I realized at the time I had so many bad things happen. There was a book by Rabbi Kushner, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? By the way, thank you for saying I'm too nice, but I read that book and I'm like, why is this happening to me? I'm a sort of an all-American kid. I have a great family. I try and do the right thing, but unfortunately, all of us we can't control that. So I was going on my walks, and Pat, I thought about what could I do to sort of maybe do something meaningful, change the world a little bit, or at least change the world as it relates to cancer patients. So I came up with some idea that I thought was my own original idea, but it really wasn't. I think I told you this. I'm very Rocky Ortenzio and Bob Ortenzio, who are dear friends of mine. They had developed rehab hospitals, outpatient freestanding rehab hospitals. They were pioneers in the industry, and I knew them very well. And Bob was my best friend, and I came up with an idea, which was basically taking their idea in developing freestanding cancer centers. I said, it's a better model. It's better for the patient because it's more family focused, patient centered, and it's outside the hospital, where hospitals are great, by the way. So I don't want to say that. We run hospitals. We have 130 hospitals in our company, but being in a freestanding, patient centered, more family focused, smaller facility is always good for patient care. And then I said it would be better it's probably cheaper to do it in that setting. So it'd be good for a patient. It'd be good for a physician who could go treat the patients. And by the way, that was right around the time that they started coming with anti-nausea drugs so that a patient could be treated outside the hospital. Because what they'd have to do, not to get too graphic, but you'd have to be hydrated because of the toxicity of the drugs you were getting with chemotherapy. With anti-nausea, you wouldn't get as sick. So, they'd have to watch you if you were in the hospital. But now in the outpatient setting, you could do it. And I believed in sort of the commercial one-stop shop, provide all wonderful services, almost a spa-like setting where they could take care of you and provide all those services under one roof. So I came up with, I replicated, I guess, an idea. And I said that became my life's work. And
What did you call it?
Well, at the time we started, it was called American Oncology Resources. And we were going to partner with doctors to provide services at the local level and get the preeminent doctors around the country to be able to, and lo and behold, I got lucky. Luck is the residue of design, right? Or when preparation meets opportunity, I guess. I think Branch Rickey said one of those two. But anyway, my doctor was treating me and he wanted to build can you imagine this? I moved from LA, I go to Denver, I'm a tennis player. He sees me on my first office visit, and I was pretty much emaciated because I hadn't been eating. And he says to me, "Boy, you look like you're in relatively good shape." And I said, "Well, thank you, but I haven't really been eating. But I used to play sports and da da da." And he says, "What'd you play?" I said, "Tennis." He said, "Oh my God, I'm passionate about tennis." I said, "I really don't like doctors. I had some bad experiences." He says, "It's okay. Why don't we go out and play tennis together?" And that became. His name is Kyle Fink. He became my dear friend. And we built the first freestanding cancer center in Colorado. And that started the journey.
Wow.
I look back, it was incredible. Our kids were just born. I was running a real estate company. And I thought I had patient experience. I knew a little bit about real estate. I went to my wife and I said, "I want to do this." And she says, "Our kids were just born. What are you talking about? You can't leave." I said, I got a calling. This is my journey. I must fulfill it. It was probably the stupidest thing to her. It was probably, "What are you doing?" But thank God I did it, right? Thank God.
And then did you sell that company?
No, we actually merged the company. We started it in the late 80s. I remember I was working in the basement to put the business plan together. We did our first deal. And then we merged with another company. It became a company that later, thankfully, became US Oncology.
Oh.
And I did that for about 10 years. And then
I want to go into your now with Select Medical, and you have the NovaCare ReVital, the cancer rehab, because I've never heard the term cancer rehab. What exactly is that?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. So there are so many conditions when you go through cancer treatment, whether, the three modalities in cancer treatment are obviously chemotherapy, surgery, or radiation therapy, or a combination of those. And way back when, we were just hopeful we could survive all this, right? Not thrive. But cancer rehab has now become part of what they call the oncology care model, the OCM, because it really is a component of a high quality care model. And it was never really recognized, but you get neuropathy, right? You get scar tissue buildup. You get all these different conditions that need to be addressed that only physical therapy can address them. But they never really focused on it because they only focused on the interventions and not the proactive follow-up. So we actually, as a company, not to self-promote too much, but we actually, and because I was pretty passionate about it, we, as you know, with NovaCare, you know it quite well, we have over 1,800 clinics, outpatient therapy clinics around the United States. And about 5 years ago, a gentleman named Pete Manning had come to me and said, "I've been running this program for cancer rehab. I think there's a huge opportunity to really expand the services because, as you know, there's tens of millions of survivors today who need ongoing therapy. And every year there's 1 million plus cancer patients who thankfully make it. So it's only increasing. Why don't we develop a program, a systematic program with training our therapists to address the needs so that we can make these patients thrive? They can be revitalized. And so we've developed this program that we now have trained over 600 therapists to be specialists. And it's growing, by the way. We have over, I think, 400 locations that provide services for these cancer patients to continue to rehabilitate and to thrive rather than just survive through their cancer.
So, David, are
treatment.
these patients, these post-cancer diagnosed patients, can they just come in, or is it required
Yes.
referral from their doctor?
No, they can come in. There, as you know, there's different in different states. There's different. Some can self-select. Some need referrals. But these patients can find locations. The ReVital program, which is really a specialized, just like whether it's hand therapy or concussion therapy. You know, this is a specialized program with a specialized therapist. And we were fortunate enough to bring a gentleman by the name of Dr. Michael Stubblefield, who worked at Sloan Kettering, who actually wrote pretty much the casebook on cancer rehab. So he's helped us with developing the training programs for the therapists, for the physicians. We work with PM&R doctors and orthopods as well in delivering this program.
And is there a fitness model within that cancer rehab?
Yes, yes, there is.
Making them from the injured to good, good to better?
Right. That's exactly what it is. And it's rehabilitating them and recovering them, right? It's a recovery.
See, that's it. Rehabilitating and recovering. I asked this specifically because Dr. Erica Reese-Punea, who's created the HEALED program for the American Cancer Society, provided a crazy statistic 2 weeks ago that 70% of those who've undergone cancer and even post-cancer treatments, 70% are on their couches. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That's why I opened this door to your ReVital program, so that people understand there are programs out there that if you feel uncomfortable about doing it yourself, there are those who can help you with expertise.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. We need to teach and inform, like you said, and inspire and motivate people to healthier living, right? The HEALED program is absolutely, and we need to make sure that they learn. And I told you that I love to quote John Wooden, who's one of my heroes. You got to learn as if you were to live forever, right? Constant learning, continuous learning is what we should be doing for all these cancer patients. They need to learn what's out there.
Kaizen, right? Continuous improvement, continuous learning. Now, I'm not going to let you go yet because you mentioned John Wooden. And I want to know, because I know one, that you are a recognized leader, not only in the healthcare field, but in our country. And John Wooden is one of your gurus. And you've read his book. But give us a little synopsis of how you personally met him.
Well, I tell people my greatest job ever, the greatest job I ever had, was when I was 12 years old and I couldn't wait to run on the floor at Pauley Pavilion to dry up the sweat off these spectacular athletes when John Wooden was the coach. And there's a famous picture, I think I mentioned this to you, of probably the greatest college basketball player ever, Bill Walton, in terms of winning 3 Player of the Years in a row. And of course, their record is amazing. But there's a picture of him above the square. And actually, ironically, I wanted to call the first, here's a quick funny story. I wanted to call the first company when I was starting it, not American Oncology Resources, but I wanted to call it Ascend Medical, Ascend. And it was a picture of Bill Walton with his hand above the square. And I was thinking, you ascend. And then a doctor came to me, a medical oncologist, says, that's not really a good name. It's terrible. You don't want to be talking about ascending, okay, the treatment of these patients. But the truth was that I loved the job and I became infatuated. He became my idol. And he has 2 terms. He talks about optimism, which is what we're all about. Things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out.
Say it again.
Isn't that awesome?
Say it again. A John Wooden quote. Give us again. Things
turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. He was he was a teacher.
That's so prophetic. Welcoming what is and taking advantage of it, being curious about it and letting life live through you in the moment. Like, whoa.
It's incredible. And also my finer point about learning is learn as if you were to live forever and live as if you were to die tomorrow. And, you know, as cancer patients, not that we're hedonists, but we should live as if we were to die tomorrow and take in and do all the things that Healed is doing and make sure that we appreciate the things that are important and that we have perspective. Because I try and tell my 30, by the way, the other blessing is, even though I went through all of this with my wife, we ended up having boy-girl twins, very efficient family, who are 30 today, who loves of our lives.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're terrific kids. And I tell them the greatest thing that came out of getting cancer was that we learned how to overcome adversity. You learn how to deal with the failure of your body, if you will, but you can recover and you gain perspective. The two most important things in life, perspective and appreciation, right? Perspective and you have it. I mean, and that brings us great success. So I'm going to end with the John quote that's most important. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to become the best of which you are capable.
Again.
Success is peace of mind in knowing, which is a direct result of the self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort. It's about effort. For all of us cancer patients, we make the effort to become the best we're capable of being.
So to match that, I love quotes like you do, but I've only created one. Well, truly two. It used to be you do your best and God takes care of the rest. But now it's my definition of success, David. The how you do whatever you're doing in the now creates the wow. How in the now creates the wow. So it's a real synopsis of John Wooden's great quote. So just move over.
Now we got you.
Move over into the locker room. I'll be bringing you back. Right now we have our, well, that was beautiful. We have our next guest is Dr. Kevin Weiss. Now, Dr. Nick Danubli, an orthopedic surgeon, friend of ours who was on the gathering maybe 6-8 weeks ago. This is our 12th week, by the way. Saw in, I don't know, it was People magazine or some magazine, that there was this orthopedic surgeon who was diagnosed with osteosarcoma at a young age. And what he does with patients who like to give up or think they have lost their ability to walk is truly amazing. Dr. Kevin Weiss, are you there?
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me today.
You kidding me, Dr. Weiss? Thank you for joining us. And you're located where right now?
Well, right now, so I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I moved here, I didn't realize how close North Carolina and South Carolina actually were. So right now I'm in South Carolina because I have two practice locations, one in Charlotte and one in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So right now I'm in Rock Hill.
And where did you move from?
So I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I did my medical school and residency in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, and then I did a fellowship in Winston-Salem in North Carolina at Wake Forest University.
So you just plant roots there once you got there.
Exactly.
So Dr. Weiss, before you talk about your specific specialty in orthopedics, share with us your history, because you, like David, who was on previous, were diagnosed with cancer at a young age.
Yeah, so I was 15 years old. I actually was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in my right lower extremity, in my tibia, which is the shin bone, for those who don't know, on my 15th birthday, actually.
Wow.
I was an avid basketball player, track runner, and I was having excruciating pain in my lower leg. And it went on for several months. And finally, my parents just said, we need to get an x-ray. And everything kind of snowballed from there. I found out pretty immediately that I had an aggressive sarcoma, osteosarcoma, in my right lower leg that would require several months of chemotherapy, a major reconstruction surgery of my right lower leg, and following after the surgery, after the surgery, another set of chemotherapy.
So wait a second, Dr. Weiss, when you talk about a reconstruction,
Yes.
are you talking the knee joint, ankle joint? Because I don't know that the tibia to be reconstructed.
So osteosarcoma is a primary cancer of bone, and the surgery for it is the crucial treatment. So yes, the chemotherapy and the advances of chemotherapy have made tremendous results in terms of survival and outcome. Initially, actually, they used to treat it with just surgery. They would amputate and then not give any chemotherapy, and then they found it could spread other places. So the chemotherapy has helped with survival, but you can't get rid of it without surgery. So when I say reconstruction, it really does depend on the patient and where the tumor actually is. For me, I was very fortunate that I did not have to have a knee replacement, because the tumor came right up to the knee joint, but did not cross into the knee joint. And so I had a reconstruction that was an allograft composite, where they took the tumor out. They took my tibia, the portion that was diseased, out and put an allograft in place.
Oh.
And so that was my reconstruction. There are advantages and disadvantages to all these surgeries. We can go on and on about all that. And I've actually, now that I'm an orthopedic surgeon, my understanding of it is obviously much greater now than when I was a teenager.
So let's go there, because Dr. Weiss, you undergoing this reconstruction of your tibia itself with an allograft to make it as strong as God had originally made it. What has that done for you in treating your patients that require reconstruction or think they won't be able to walk again?
So I do. It's interesting, because my specialty is hip and knee replacement surgery, and the patients that I take care of are a little different. They don't necessarily, some do have cancer diagnoses, but most of them have arthritis. And so my surgeries that I perform are reconstructions in terms of joint replacement. So I do hip replacements and knee replacements for a variety of reasons. And but it still is, patients come to me with debilitating pain or inability to do their normal daily activities because they've been living with end stage arthritis for so long. And the surgeries that I do for them allow them to live their life without pain and get back to doing all the things they want to do. I had thought a lot about going into musculoskeletal oncology when I was in residency, which is a subset of orthopedic surgery, another specialty. It hit a little close to home for me. And, I think that there were other areas of interest that I had in medicine. And that's why I ultimately chose to pursue a fellowship in adult reconstruction, which is hip and knee replacement surgery for those who have debilitating pain or arthritis.
So how do you use the debilitating pain that you had as a young athlete at 15 to overcome, and you had to cope with that at some point?
Yes.
How do you use that experience with your patient base?
So I think it's interesting, because when I have these conversations with my patients on a daily basis, they come to see me. A lot of them are depressed. They used to be able to do things that they no longer can do. They have been living a life of pain, and people have told them that there's nothing they can do for them. And I feel that I'm able to develop a connection with them, because I understand what that feels like. I know what that feels like, because at 15, that happened to me. And now, granted, I had to deal with other things as well, as you mentioned. But when it comes to just having a disability, I know what that's like, because I lived it. And I had to refocus all of my energy and what I thought was important, and to kind of cope and recover. I had to change all of my mindset of what I thought I was going to do when I was 15, which is play basketball for the rest of my life. And obviously things changed pretty immediately for me. And I think that when I talk to patients, I think that whether it comes up my personal story or not, I think that they know that I understand what they're going through because I've been through it and I know how they feel. And sometimes you just develop that connection with patients. And I hope that they know that about me.
So you said that word connection twice.
Yes.
Share with us, all the members of this gathering, what that connection means to you and what percentage of the treatment program is that connection?
I think that, you know, as I've grown and evolved in my practice, I think that it really is everything. I think that my patients, when they come and see me and they're doing well, and they're walking without pain, and they're so thankful for what I was able to do for them. It's just, it's the most rewarding thing that you can do in medicine. To be able to fix a problem and for patients to be happy that you did and to watch them walk and live their life. It's incredibly rewarding. And I think that it's something that we share together with our patients. And as I've kind of built my practice here in Charlotte and Rock Hill, it's become a family for me. It's become a family.
Do you have partners in your practice?
I do, yes.
Now, do they treat patients with the same kind of loving care that you do?
I hope so. It's a nice community here. And I was just having a conversation with people the other day that I've been very fortunate to be in a great practice with great people to work with and great patients to take care of.
So of all of our let's say cancer patients who are with us today and they've undergone surgery, and you as a surgeon know that the cutting is just one portion of the entire treatment plan. What advice can you give from an orthopedic surgeon's point of view so that all of us patients out there, and we all are patients one day or the other, what can we benefit from your expertise?
You mean in terms of just how to recover from an operation?
Yes, because once you've cut them and reconstructed their knee or their hip, whether it's from cancer or arthritis, what do you tell them to make it look like you did the work?
Well, I tell them that we are not doing this alone, right? We're doing it together. And so I will tell you, I think it is a hard part in the reality in medicine and when it comes to surgeons, is that a lot of surgeons don't work with their patients the way that they maybe should. And so I think that it's important for patients to have that connection with their surgeon and to know that they're not alone in this process. And whether it's their surgeon or their doctor or their physical therapist, it's something that is not done just by yourself. It's something that is done together. You know, a lot of my patients, they come to me and they're like, you fixed me. I now can do everything that I couldn't do before. And I tell them, well, for me, it was just, I did the surgery. You're the one living with this. You're the one putting the work in. You're the one taking care of your body. You're the one staying active and staying fit and staying strong and doing all the right things. You know, for me, it was the same surgery that I've done before. And so I think patients need that encouragement. I think they need to know that if they do the things that they are instructed to do and they approach it with the right attitude, that they can achieve unbelievable results. I'm amazed by what my patients do.
Connection, attitude, proper follow-up, all these little qualities that you're inculcating in your treatment plan. And this all came from your personal experience, that this is what you had to cope with pain at the age of 15, and you want to return to your athletics at the age of 15. And now you're seeing your patients 15, 50, 60, however old they are, with debilitating pain, the same kind of pain you had. How important is it for you to get across to them that this will help?
Again, it's what matters most. Patients have to handle it with the right attitude. And you know, when I was being treated, I approached every aspect of my treatment with a positive mindset. I was adamant that I was going to get back doing everything I wanted to do. There wasn't a single thing that anybody could tell me that was going to make me believe that I wasn't going to be better. And so, you know, I had my moments. I mean, I had 9 months of chemotherapy. I was inpatient in the hospital for every round of chemo. I think I spent, my mom actually had calculated it out, how many days I actually spent in the hospital over that year. And just like any patient, you have to have a grieving process, and there's going to be moments during that time when things don't seem like they're going to get better. But through my family and my friends and my doctors and my attitude, I was able to get through that. And I see how I'm doing now and how I feel now is a direct result of that attitude and mindset that I was fortunate enough to be kind of cultivated with. And at 15, you know, I got to give credit where credit's due. I had unbelievable support. My family was amazing, and I couldn't have done anything without them. But because I know how you have to think when you get a diagnosis like that, that's what I try to impart on a daily basis to my patients.
Okay, good. Here we are. This is the strike zone. How do you impart that information? How do you get someone who is with a negative mindset, a low vibrational frequency, only because over the past months or years, they've not been where they wanted to be. And now you happen to have the key that unlocks this gift of a positive attitude. How do you turn the key?
I think you just have to, it's hard because it's not, for every patient, it's different, right? You know, not everybody handles things the same way. Not every patient copes the same way. Not every patient, you know, some people just don't, they need, what they need is different, you know? And I think the important thing for any orthopedic surgeon is that you got to listen to your patient, understand your patient, and realize that it's a process for them. And, you know, I think in medicine, many people, and going through a residency and going through a medical degree is a grueling process. And I think Dr. Nick would probably say the same thing. And it is easy to get kind of frustrated by it, and to be overwhelmed by it, and to forget why we are doing what we're doing. Doctors, unfortunately, are still people. They're still human beings with emotions and feelings. And, you know, when you have a busy day or a busy week and there's life going on and all the stresses that come about it, doctors, we feel all that stuff too. But you have to find a way. I tell all of my colleagues and friends and people that are going into medical school and anybody that I'm talking to, you have to find a way to remember why you're doing what you're doing. Don't ever forget why you chose to become a doctor. Don't ever forget why you chose to become a surgeon. You're doing this to help people. And as long as you remember that, you're going to be able to to have those conversations with patients to help them cope with whatever diagnosis they're dealing with.
Beautiful. And Dr. Weiss, that parlays exactly with what David had mentioned earlier. What's really important to you? And that's what you're saying right now. So David, why don't you come back on, please? Because I got a 1-2 punch here in motivation.
Hey, Kevin. Dr.
Hi,
Weiss.
nice to meet you.
So, I mean, this has just been great. Both of you were diagnosed with cancers at a young age, 25, David, 15, Dr. Weiss, and you've both taken that experience and evolved it into a wonderful, successful healthcare opportunity for the world. You're changing people one person at a time. And not only physically, but mentally, spiritually. That's exactly what HEALED's all about. So I thank you for being with us. And I would love for Diana to come on because we have some questions from our members.
I have to say one thing. David, you had the fortunate ability to meet John Wooden.
Yeah.
So I'm a big, Make-A-Wish was a big part of my recovery as well. My Make-A-Wish was actually to meet Coach K. And
Wow.
he was a big part of my ability to kind of he helped change my mentality tremendously.
How, Dr. Weiss, how do you change your mentality?
So I had a lot of communication with him when I decided that that's who I wanted to meet for my Make-A-Wish.
Wow.
And it just, my dream was to play basketball at Duke University. That was what I was going to do. Nobody was going to tell me I couldn't. And to develop a relationship like that was just, I mean, remarkable. I mean, it was remarkable. It's like, you know, people always ask you if you could go back in time. People have always asked me this. If I could go back in time and not be diagnosed with osteosarcoma and instead have had a stress fracture and lived my life, would I do it? And I say no.
Yeah.
I say no.
By the way,
So,
you know, the point you made, Dr. Weiss, is he may be the greatest coach as well. I didn't want to demean him because I think they're 1 and 2, right? Because not because they're so successful on the court, but they really, both of them were high value, high integrity, to your point, teaching people about life. And I think their greatest success is, if you ask them, I know it was for Wooden, and I believe it is for Coach K, it's all about helping people be successful in life beyond the court. And everybody will say that, right?
I remember that, you know, because I have a big scar on my leg, and you know, if you look, you'll notice that there's something going on. And I remember when I was young, I would walk through the airport and stuff, and I would always tell my parents, I'm like, you know, people ask me what happened to me, and I didn't want to tell them, right? I didn't want to say, because I didn't want to get into it. Not because I was embarrassed or ashamed, but I didn't want to get into the whole story and everything, you know? And so I remember I was having that conversation because when I met Coach K, we were talking, and he looked at me and he said, "You are a survivor. Why would you know, I'll never be able to repeat it the way he did, because it's like, you know, unbelievable leader, and everybody in the room who's there is focused on what he's saying. And it made me realize that you tell people you're a survivor, you know, that's what we're here for, right? You know, that's why we're at this community together, right?
Right.
beautiful. Go ahead,
Awesome.
Diana. Questions for David or Dr. Weiss?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. The first one is for David. We actually have had some inquiries about information about the ReVital Cancer Rehab Program and
Yes.
how and where to access it.
Yeah, I will. I think there's actually a website through Select Medical, but I will get that to you. I should know this. I'm not really a great promoter. This is really not very good. I may get fired for this, by the way. But yeah, I will get you that information promptly, and I will text it to you. And as I pointed out, I think we're up to over 500 locations around the country, and over 600 therapists who are actively trained. And this isn't just they took a course. This is hands-on. As Dr. Weiss will know, this is real work, 60 hours. It's not going through residency and fellowships, but it's pretty darn close in terms of the therapist. So thank you.
Right.
We'd love to help.
I can't do my job without physical therapists. They are.
You get it.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dr. Weiss, I don't know if you know, that was my career.
Dr. Nick did mention that to me.
Because I loved orthopedic surgeons my question was loaded earlier because as an orthopedic surgeon, I love those surgeons who's used physical therapy to make them finish their work. I used to compare it to a carpenter who never hired the painter.
Yeah.
Like, we'll make you look better. We'll just help buff the edges.
For sure.
Go ahead, Diana.
Okay. Kevin, we'd like to ask you a question. You talked about your plans of playing basketball as a young man and how that really got derailed with your cancer diagnosis. What advice do you have for young people who have been diagnosed with cancer, looking at their future after cancer?
So I always tell everybody who asks me this question, because I've actually had a lot of questions like this when I did a lot of volunteering at the pediatric oncology department in Cleveland Clinic where I was treated. And I tell everybody, number one, get through the diagnosis. Focus on your treatment. Focus on getting better and focus on getting stronger. You can't walk before you crawl, right? And so you've got to put your energy and your time into getting healthy. Take it one step at a time. Do your physical therapy with Pat, right? Get strong again. And then let's have a conversation about how you're feeling at that time. Because I'll tell you, doctors told me I would not be able to play basketball again. It devastated me. It made me not be able to go through my treatment. Because at 15, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I have limitations now physically, but I can accept my physical limitations now because I took it one step at a time. Because by the time I was done with my treatment, I learned a lot in that year. I learned a lot. But if you don't focus on getting through the treatment, then your mind is going to take you all sorts of places.
Right.
Man,
Thank you,
so
Dr.
well said.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Weiss. I do have another question for David. Looking at the future of cancer rehabilitation, where do you see that going as far as how patients will continue their improvement after their treatment ends, looking in the future of cancer rehabilitation?
It's really a great question. And Dr. Weiss really is like the perfect person to demonstrate the power of rehab and physical therapy. I mean, they always used to say, I don't know, Pat, if that was part of your tagline, but there is power in physical therapy and therapy in general from a rehabilitative standpoint. Those who have gone through it or have never gone through it and never experienced it don't understand the true impact. But Diana, as I've said earlier, we're here to help our patients thrive. And Dr. Weiss made the comment, and I would reinforce it. We're not here just to survive. We're actually blessed that we went through it. I don't know if you feel that way, Kevin, but I actually do. It made me a stronger person. It made me by the way, Kevin, you and I should talk because I'm very involved in basketball with some athletes who are friends and who are really spectacular people. But I talk about positive attitude and flexibility in getting through life. And rehab does that. It gives you the better attitude. You work towards something. You go through the journey. You stay with the program. And it's amazing how one can recover through physical therapy. Pat, that was your life. right? You saw.
I had
not
one
only
easy
hope-
line. If it's physical, it's therapy. Now move.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you were probably, but I will tell you the ReVital program and other programs similar too, but the idea of giving people hope through therapy and realizing that they're getting back to where they were. I mean, that's all people hope for. But you got to stay the course, and it's hard, it's rigorous, it's difficult. But you know what? It'll give them that attitude, as you talked about, Dr. Weiss, that enables them to really be happy. And that's what we're hoping for, right?
We're here to help them see the forest through the trees, right? I mean, that's because we've seen the finish line, but
Right.
they haven't yet. And so
Right.
they need to know that it takes time to get there. And once they get there and they look back and they see this road that they traveled, it's a remarkable moment.
Dr. Weiss, you know that they don't know what they don't know. So your positive attitude in what you do know sets the seed for success for them, because what my doctor is telling me, not that I will never play basketball again, that guy should have been strangled, but that let's take care of what we need to take care of right now, and then let's see. I mean,
Exactly.
I love that approach.
Well, it's easy. Doctors will say, I'm not going to lie to my patient. Well, there's ways to communicate with people without lying to them. I mean, I'm not lying to anybody when I tell them, because I don't know what you're going to be able to recover and do. Who knows, right? But what I do know is we've got to take care of this.
See, that's a beautiful comment right there. We don't know. We're not God. No one knows for sure, but you do know. And what you do know is you got to take care of this now.
Yep.
And right now, I want to thank you, Dr. Kevin Weiss. I want to thank you, David Chernow, Diana, and Scotty, our producer, for joining us today on American Cancer Society's Healed Movement, Health and Energy Through Active Living Every Day. And today we covered body, mind, and spirit with these two great guests. And hopefully you took notes, because I did. And I'd like to end, David and Dr. Weiss, with a little prayer. And it's not a petitionary prayer. It's really about the now. Thank you for the grace in helping me to welcome what is right now. It's all about right now. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Keep up the good work, Dr. Weiss.
You do. Thanks, as well.
Bye, Diana.